Well, I guess Warner Brothers wanted to work overtime to make up for the lack of actual Halloween-themed Scooby movies. Trick or Treat Scooby-Doo was the only Scooby movie released for 2022 and supposedly wasn't originally scheduled to come out that year. According to rumor, there was some shuffling around behind the scenes between this movie and the next one, much like the Sword in the Scoob Happy Halloween Scooby-Doo situation, but I have no official confirmation of this. What I do have confirmation of is that Trick or Treat Scooby-Doo was going to herald a new era of Scooby media, since we now have another change to the art style, and the canceled movie Scooby-Doo and the Haunted High-Rise was going to maintain the same style. This movie uses the softer, more traditional designs and aesthetics of Scooby-Doo and Guess Who, which is a series that I do not really like. I found it very repetitive and unfunny with a few exceptions, and frankly, any show that gives screen time to Ricky Gervais is going to meet with my disapproval on general principle.
Until the plucky hero of our story, Ricky Gervais, comedian, actor, writer, and obviously highly skilled puppeteer.
Oh, fuck off, Gervais. Anyway, this movie garnered a lot of attention for seemingly canonizing something that had been a long-running joke amongst generations of Scooby-Doo fans, but we'll get to that in a minute. Trick or Treat Scooby-Doo was released on digital on October 4th, 2022, with a physical DVD release on October 18th. It was written by Laurie Pollock, Daniel McClellan, and Audie Harrison, with Harrison taking on directing duties as well. The film opens in Kathmandu, and immediately we know things are going to be different in terms of style and tone compared to other recent movies in this series. Shaggy and Scooby are, as per usual, being chased down the mountain by the gang's latest monster. Fred, Velma, and Daphne are waiting with the usual trap. Okay, maybe not the usual trap. Get used to this, folks. The Guess Who era has some very strange mix of retro design mixed with Be Cool style gags. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. However, the usual reveal is interrupted as the gang actually have an ulterior motive as they take a whisker from the mask and analyze it.
The materials used to make the Catman suit are identical to every other costume from the criminals we've captured.
It would seem that all the costumes being used by the various creeps and masks that the gang have foiled are all being provided by one person, high-end Halloween costume designer Coco Diablo. We go to Coco's factory where she's giving a VIP tour to a potential new creep in a mask and engaging in employee relations.
I've just completed the prototype for next year's Dracula costume.
Really, Trevor, can't you design anything other than Dracula?
When Coco, her cat Esteban, and her client are left alone, we get a nifty little callback as Coco presents her client with the costume of the 10,000-volt ghost. She tells her client she's willing to let him have the costume for nothing if, in addition to his own scheme, he attempts to take out Mystery Incorporated. Except there's one small problem with that plan.
Like, I am one of those meddling kids.
So yeah, this was a sting operation to catch Coco and... oh, fine, let's talk about this.
Here are your Scooby snacks.
So yeah, this was the bit that made the internet lose its shit in both the good and bad way for a brief moment. Velma, or at least this version of Velma, is gay. How do I feel about it? Honestly, kinda conflicted. While I'm all for more queer rep in modern media in general, and I don't really have an issue with Velma being into other women in and of itself, I kinda feel like it's also kinda dumb. I've gone on record as saying that I equate the idea of Velma being a lesbian with the idea of Shaggy and Scooby being stoners. Both these ideas have been floating around as jokes for literal decades, and everybody, whether serious or not, thinks they're the first ones to make these observations based on lazy stereotypes. Shaggy's a long-haired, always hungry weirdo? Must be a hippie stoner. Velma dresses frumpy, has short hair, and doesn't really seem to be all that interested in guys for the most part? Well, she must be into women. I just find it a really easy out for a writer looking to put in some queer representation. If I had been writing this and wanted to go a similar route, I'd make it Daphne who's all gaga for Coco. I think it would be more interesting. Oh, and if you'll let me break the illusion for just a sec, back when this movie came out, I had a mildly successful Twitter thread where I made the case that Scooby-Doo doesn't have one consolidated continuity, but instead has at least 17 different timelines, depending on how you group the various TV shows, movies, specials, and other assorted whatnot. In most of these timelines, Velma's sexuality is not addressed because that is not the concern of the franchise. In a few of them, she's into guys, and in at least 3, she has been confirmed as lesbian by people involved with the production, and there is one timeline as a production of this video where she is explicitly on camera bisexual. So, if you'd like to see this breakdown for yourselves, there's a link in the description below. But while I myself am bisexual, I'm also not a lesbian, so my problem with the idea of Velma being gay is exactly that. My problem. And it's not my job to try to detract from one of the few positive examples of a long-running pop culture icon being depicted as a part of a marginalized group. So yeah, well, I'm not crazy about the idea, I'm not mad about it either. It's more of a personal hang-up than any kind of actual flaw the movie has. So now that we've addressed that, let's move on. Fred outlines how they figured out Coco was behind everything, addressing the various ways that the members of the gang helped.
And Daphne, well,
Fred, don't be silly. You know very well that
Looks like I actually need to retract one of these. So, Coco's arrested and we go to the opening credits, which show that things are indeed much quieter and boring, and even the theme song knows it.
I know it's good to take a break and chill, but Scooby-Doo, I really miss the fun.
When we come back from the credits, a year has passed, things have not gotten any better, and Fred is apparently going into withdrawal.
Or maybe, let's just see who you really are.
What are you doing?
Oh good, we're back on track. Coco Diablo, on the other hand, has apparently only seen an uptick in fame since she went to prison, and wrote a book.
Velma, you bought a copy?
Oh, I buy every best-selling book written by criminals we put away.
Smooth, Velma. They'll never suspect a thing. Anyway, the next day is Halloween, and the boys gear up for trick-or-treating. Okay, that last one was legitimately funny. I laughed. After deciding on costumes, the rest of the gang picked the boys up, and Fred has a genius plan to drum up business.
What if we set up a booth at the Coolsville Halloween Festival today?
Oh, I guess we're in Coolsville again. Well, I guess that makes sense, given the change in art style and all.
All Fred Jones had to say was,
I think Coolsville sucks.
Anyway, after that idea gets shot down, Fred pulls off the side of the road for seemingly no reason.
I think I see my grandmother over there.
Actually, this is dumb, even by idiot Fred's standards. Fred stopped to make a wish at a wishing well, wishing for, what else, a creepy mystery like they used to solve. The rest of the gang see this frankly pathetic sight and decide to indulge Fred's plan after all. And we continue this unfunny plot point.
What can I do to help?
Oh, why don't you put the guest book on the table?
While out trying to drum up business, the boys take a break to do some bobbing for apples, and then things get weird.
And just how are we supposed to compete with that?
No, not that kind of weird. This kind of weird. Despite being freaked right the hell out, the boys decide not to tell the rest of the gang what happened, since that could mean missing out on trick-or-treating in favor of figuring out what's going on.
Man, we saw a ghost! Sorry, Freddy.
And of course, they get confirmation when the ghost shows up.
Are you guys seeing this? Oh, my wish came true.
The ghost starts attacking the gang, blowing up the mystery machine, again, and forcing them to hide. While hiding, Fred and Velma make a plan, but Daphne points out that if there's a ghost attacking them specifically on Halloween, there's only one person that could be behind this.
I think it's time we pay a visit to our old pal, Coco Diablo.
I love that idea!
Again, they'll never suspect a thing, Velma. The gang head for the Coolsville Penitentiary, where the warden is a huge fan of theirs, and just about every crook they put away is here. The warden shows off some of the anti-escape measures that have been installed, tempts the boys with pancakes, and indulges in a gag that goes on for way too long. So we get the obligatory bordering on cliche by now Silence of the Lambs bit where Coco denies she has anything to do with what's going on, but implies that if she had more details on what the ghost looked like, she could point the gang in the direction of some of her rivals. Velma, who has no ulterior motives here at all, suggests that Coco come with them to help them solve the case. Daphne likes the idea, and Shaggy and Scooby of course don't care what they do so long as trick-or-treating still happens. Fred, however, is skeptical.
A little help might be... Just say it already.
This is taking forever!
Funny. That's just what I was thinking about this movie. I mean, we're half an hour into this thing and we just barely got the inciting incident of the plot. So yeah, in exchange for helping the gang, Coco gets early release, and in the meantime, she's going to be tracked.
We just need one of you kids to wear the matching bracelet and serve as home base, if you will.
I'll do it!
Have you ever been walking down the street with your best bro, and while you're walking, you accidentally touch hands? You think to yourself, that was weird, but I'm not gay. You are. You are gay.
If Velma's blatantly transparent attempts to hide her interest in Coco is annoying you as much as it is me, don't worry, it's annoying the movie itself.
Okay, who am I kidding? I'm crushing big time, Daphne! What do I do? What do I say?
But not as much as it decides to annoy its audience by dragging things out again, because the Mystery Machine is trashed and has a top speed of about 3. This is what I'm talking about. This incarnation of the franchise is clearly going for gags, but unlike Be Cool Scooby-Doo or even the last couple of movies, none of the gags really work, relying more on the kind of humor which thinks long awkward pauses, or in this case, painfully drawn-out jokes, are the pinnacle of comedy. Things finally get moving again when the gang takes Coco back to the festival grounds and she actually proves to be useful.
Judging by the trace amounts of propylene glycol, whoever's behind this clearly lacks imagination.
That splash you just heard came from Velma. I will not elaborate further. Coco finds the guest book, which has the word Nefario scrawled across a couple of pages. It doesn't mean anything to Coco, which means it's research time. Specifically, a book entitled The Life and Crimes of Friedrich Nefario. And let's just get right to the point. Nefario and his friends are basically evil versions of the gang, calling themselves Misery Company and...
I can't take it anymore! Let's see here. According to legend, blah, blah, blah.
Okay, you know it's a bad sign when one of your movie's characters is getting bored with how long this is taking.
Misery Company got to live forever, but in return they were forced to maintain the balance of good and evil in the world.
Anyway, Coco theorizes that Misery Company is around because the gang upset the balance when they put her away, which is of course Nefario's cue to show up and start the chase, which for some reason is set to Ballroom Blitz by The Sweet. Oh yeah, and the rest of Misery Company show up here too. The chase comes to an end when the librarian reads both the gang and the ghosts the riot act for being too loud, and the gang escape out a window. In the van, Velma goes all Charlie Brown when Coco calls her cute, but more relevant, after seeing what the ghosts were wearing, Coco's pretty sure she knows who's behind everything.
Black lace, platform boots, tacky cloak, top hat. I know who is behind this.
Everything, of course, points to Trevor, and the gang heads for Trevor's shop. However, Trevor doesn't seem to know anything about what's going on, and the security footage proves that he's been in his shop all day. However, that doesn't mean the visit's a complete loss.
Last week, I sent some of my finest Victorian creations directly to Coolsville Penitentiary.
This puts suspicion right back on Coco, who takes advantage of the gang being distracted by Trevor sobbing over his receipts to make a break for it. As the gang rush outside, the lights come on at Coco's factory, and we get a montage so the Mystery Machine can be fixed, and we can put that lame joke to bed. Yeah, the result is about what you'd expect with Trevor involved. I almost prefer the bombed out wreck. Anyway, the gang head to the factory, expecting that it's going to be full of traps set by Coco. Split up time happens as Shaggy and Scooby head for the vending machines, while Fred, Velma, and Daphne hear voices that sound suspiciously like themselves. They find Misery Company playing cards in the break room, but when the ghosts get ready to move out...
Oh no, what should we do?
Let's see. We already split up and looked for clues, so...
Okay, here's the plan.
The ghosts manage to nab Fred, Velma, and Daphne and put them on the conveyor line where they're going to be pressed, folded, and packaged. Fortunately, their screams for help get Shaggy and Scooby's attention, and we get another of those oh-so-rare but oh-so-satisfying moments of bravery.
Hey, ghouls! Don't forget about me and Scooby-Doo!
Yeah, this whole franchise is named after me.
But believe it or not, this plan works as the boys drop their Halloween costumes on a couple of the mannequins lying around, and when the ghosts realize their mistake, the boys drop them into the alligator pit we saw earlier and save the rest of the gang. Which leads to the reveal. Kind of.
Robots?
and it's at this point that Coco appears out of the shadows, but something seems off.
I built the robots and programmed them to get back at you for taking me down.
Fortunately, the gang also thinks something isn't right. Scooby especially is wondering where Esteban is. He tracks Esteban's scent to the devil head Coco used as her office, saying the cat is in there along with someone else, which leads to the actual reveal.
Warden Collins?
Do not adjust your screens. This is, in fact, as dumb as you think it is. He had the skill to program the robots and the obsessive fanboyism to make them look like ghost versions of the gang. Coco didn't actually make a break for it at Trevor's shop. Instead, the warden got her out of the tracking bracelet, took Esteban hostage, and forced Coco to confess to everything. Why? Because the gang's case closure rate meant he always had a full prison, and when the cases dried up, he wanted to give them the best case they'd ever solved. Again, yes, this is stupid. But you know what's even more stupid?
Oops! Oh, that one deactivates all the security force fields at the prison.
Wow! You're an idiot!
And to add to the stupid, the warden drops the control box, causing it to break, and every single crook in the prison to be unleashed on the town.
Oh, right, gang. It looks like our work isn't even close to done.
With that many creeps on the loose, the gang needs help, and Coco knows just how to supply it. So yeah, using the costumes, the gang rounds up the crooks and sends them back to prison, after Coco uses the 10,000-volt ghost costume to get them to give up the candy they stole, which goes right back to the kids, much to Shaggy and Scooby's disappointment. Oh yeah, and if you really must have a resolution to the other thing...
No, it's just that I thought we got along great. Do you know how rare it is for me to like someone other than myself?
Oh yeah, and I guess there's that whole what's Daphne's role thing.
But Daphne, you've always been the leader of Mystery Inc.
Wait, seriously?
I have a much more important and prestigious duty of driving the van.
Okay, so everything looks like it'll go back to the way it was. Unless Fred has anything to say about it. And where's all that money going? Okay, Trick or Treat Scooby-Doo isn't a bad movie, but it is very, very dumb. It doesn't really have any interest in the story it's trying to tell, using it more as a framework for gags and Velma making eyes at Coco through the whole thing. It's pretty much exactly what it looks like, a longer episode of Scooby-Doo and Guess Who. Although in this case it's mitigated by the guest star being an original character rather than a real or fictional celebrity. Fortunately, it's at least a longer version of one of the better episodes of Scooby-Doo and Guess Who. For the most part, the gags are funny, Velma's crush on Coco is pretty cute and fun, and Coco herself is a good character to play the gang off of. But the standout here is the animation. As I'm sure you've seen, these character designs allow for a lot more flexibility and fluid motion, which allows the movie to indulge in some squash and stretch style animation. Not to Tex Avery extremes, but enough to make things appropriately goofy to emphasize a punchline. The story may not be much, but there's at least always something interesting to look at. So if you haven't seen this one, yeah, give it a watch. You'll probably laugh more than you think, and you'll definitely have your attention grabbed. And with that, we lock up another of the 30-plus films of Scooby-Doo.
Scooby-Doo!
Here come those meddling kids to join the chase. No creep can keep them